My co-founders stole $500,000 from me, and I made him lose everything. I never imagined the person who would hurt me the most wasn't a stranger, a competitor, or even a rival. It was the man I trusted, like a brother. Jake and I built our startup from nothing, literally nothing. 2 laptops, a shared desk in his apartment, and a belief that we could create something better than the bloated companies we once worked for. We weren't geniuses, we weren't prodigies. We were just 2 guys willing to work harder than everyone else. For the first 2 years, we were inseparable. Late-night coding sessions, cheap takeout dinners, arguing about design choices at 3 a.m., celebrating small wins like they were championships. Those were some of the best nights of my life. So when people ask me how I didn't see what he did, I tell them the truth. You don't expect the person you trust most to be the one sharpening the knife. The company grew faster than either of us expected. By year 3, we had an office, employees, investors, and more work than we could handle. I ran operations and product. Jake handled finance, contracts, and investor relations. And at first, it made sense. He was good with people. He could walk into a room full of stone-faced investors and somehow walk out with signatures. I trusted him with the financial side because I thought it was the logical split. The mistake wasn't trusting him. The mistake was not checking. Everything started to feel off the moment Marcus joined the team. Marcus was the kind of employee every founder dreams about. Sharp, reliable, humble, asked the right questions, never tried to show off. He didn't waste time and he didn't play politics. He reminded me of us in the early days. But Jake didn't like him. I didn't understand why at first. He kept making weird comments, like, he seems too curious. He asks too much about budgets. He's trying to get close to you. I brushed it off as insecurity. Looking back, Jake wasn't worried about Marcus getting close to me. He was worried Marcus would get close to the truth. The first real red flag came during a meeting with one of our biggest clients. They mentioned a priority fee they had just paid, something I'd never heard of. I laughed, assuming they were referring to some optional add-on. But the client's director pulled up an invoice, a real invoice, with our logo, with Jake's signature. A $20,000 priority processing fee that didn't exist in any of our service tiers. I felt my stomach turn. I confronted Jake after the meeting, and he brushed it off with a laugh. "Oh, that! It's just a new experiment. I meant to tell you. Relax, man. We needed cash flow this month." Something about the way he said it felt wrong. Too casual, too rehearsed. I pushed him about it for a week, but every time he dodged the question. Then one night, Marcus pulled me aside after everyone left. He checked the hallway twice before speaking. "Alex, there's something I think you should see." He opened his laptop and showed me a folder he found accidentally while fixing an issue on Jake's machine. A folder labeled Internal Adjustments. Inside were dozens of altered invoices, transactions that didn't match our books, and worst of all, transfers made to a personal account under Jake's name. Small amounts at first, $2,500, $4,000, $9,800, then larger ones, $50,000, $70,000, $120,000. My chest felt tight, like someone was sitting on it. Marcus looked at me carefully. "I'm not sure what this is, but it didn't feel right, so I thought you should know." I must have stared at the screen for 10 straight minutes. My brain refused to process what I was looking at. Jake, my co-founder, my friend, my brother in everything but blood. He had stolen from us, from the company, from me. That night, I didn't confront him. I didn't scream. I didn't storm into his office. I just went home. sat in the dark, and stared at the wall until sunrise. And as the sun came up, one thought kept repeating. If these transactions exist, then how deep does this go? I had no idea then, but the truth was far worse than I imagined. And the betrayal wasn't even the part that would hurt the most.
The next few days were a blur. I couldn't focus on work, couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every time I looked at Jake, I felt like I was seeing him for the first time. And I hated what I saw. I didn't confront him immediately. I needed proof. Solid proof. Something undeniable. Marcus became my secret ally. We started digging through old financial statements, emails, contracts, anything that could expose Jake. He was meticulous, methodical, careful not to tip Jake off. What we found was worse than I imagined. Jake hadn't just skimmed money here and there. He had set up a whole network of shell companies. Clients were being billed for services they never received. Investors were misled about revenue numbers. Employees were left unpaid on purpose to cover the gaps. And Marcus, he was brave. He warned me, Alex, if you go after him, he'll come after you. He won't play fair. But I couldn't let it go. Every night, I kept thinking about the sleepless nights we'd spent building this company. Every small victory, every bet we had made, every moment of trust Jake had broken. I decided to gather everything we had and confront him. I didn't want to fight in the office. I wanted control. The night before the meeting, I stayed up until 3 a.m. reviewing documents. Invoices, bank statements, emails, all laid out on my laptop like a crime scene. I rehearsed what I would say, how I would react if he lied, how I would respond if he tried to intimidate me. And then came the morning. Jake walked into the office, smiling, like nothing was wrong. I felt the weight of every stolen dollar, every manipulated contract, every betrayal pressed against me like a physical force. I laid the documents in front of him. The shell companies, the false invoices, the transfers, everything. He blinked. And then he laughed. Wow, you really went through all that, he said, casual. Relax, Alex. You don't get it. I'm just making sure we stay alive in this market. I felt anger boil inside me. Every ounce of friendship, every ounce of trust, every ounce of history gone. Jake, I said, voice calm but cold, you've stolen over $500,000. You've lied to investors, cheated employees, and put this company at risk. I trusted you, and you've destroyed that trust. He leaned back, smirking. You'll get over it. Don't take it personally. That's when I realized he had no intention of feeling guilt. None. And that's when I made my first move. Not a violent one, not a shouting match, a calculated, patient move. I started contacting our investors discreetly. I prepared backup plans for employees' salaries. I documented everything meticulously. Every email, every transaction, every lie. I wasn't going to confront him blindly again. I was going to hit him where it hurt the most, financially, legally, and socially. And I knew one thing for sure. The man who betrayed me would regret ever touching a dime of our money. But I didn't know how long it would take or how far he would go to fight back.
The moment I started preparing my case against Jake, I realized something terrifying. He was smarter than I gave him credit for. A person who can steal $500,000 without blinking is also a person who anticipates enemies long before they appear. And I learned that the hard way. 2 days after our confrontation, I came into the office and sensed something was off. Employees were silent. Conversations stopped the moment I walked past. everyone kept avoiding eye contact. Marcus ran to me, looking nervous. "Alex, Jake has been spreading rumors about you." I froze. "What kind of rumors?" Marcus swallowed. "He's telling people you're mentally unstable, that you've been mismanaging funds, that you're planning to take the company down with you." My stomach dropped. Of course, classic manipulation. Jake knew the truth was dangerous, so he tried to destroy my credibility before I could expose him. Things escalated quickly. Clients I'd known for years suddenly scheduled urgent check-in meetings. Investors I had spoken to every quarter stopped replying to my emails. Even employees who had once trusted me began keeping their distance. Jake was poisoning the well, methodically, deliberately, strategically. But what he didn't know was that I had already anticipated this move. Every step he took only added more proof to my growing case. While he was running around charming people and planting doubts, I was building relationships quietly, privately, with the people who mattered the most, the largest investors. I met with them outside the office, in cafes and private rooms. I showed them the documents, the bank transfers, the fake invoices, the shell companies. Some were shocked, some were angry, but all of them shared one reaction. They felt betrayed. One investor, a man named Peterson, looked at me across the table and said, "If this is true, Alex, Jake isn't just stealing, he's committing federal crimes." I nodded. "I know, and I need your help to take him down before he burns us all." Bit by bit, I built a coalition. I wasn't loud. I wasn't dramatic. I was precise. While Jake attacked my reputation publicly, I attacked his foundation privately. And Jake, clueless, arrogant Jake, thought he was winning. Until the morning everything shifted. I walked into the office and found Jake waiting at my desk with a grin. "I've heard you've been going behind my back, Alex. Investors, employees, meetings, not very loyal of you." I kept my voice calm. "What do you want, Jake?" He leaned in, lowering his voice. "You're going to step down today. Resign quietly, hand over your shares, and disappear. If you don't, I'll make sure everyone believes you're the real thief." I stared at him. For a moment, the room felt smaller, the air heavier. This was no longer a business dispute. This was a threat. But what Jake didn't know was that I had just received an email that morning. A single email that changed everything. The forensic accountant I had hired independently had finished analyzing all financial activity for the past year, and the report was devastating. Not only did it prove Jake stole the money, it linked his transactions to an even bigger scheme, one that involved 2 external contractors and a private account he thought was untraceable. I looked Jake straight in the eyes. "You think I'm scared of you?" I said softly. "You have no idea what's coming." For the first time since this nightmare began, Jake's smile faltered. He didn't know the details yet. He didn't know I had investors on my side. He didn't know I had legal counsel ready. He didn't know I had documentation stretching back months. But he sensed something. Fear flickered in his eyes. And that's when I realized the counterattack had truly begun. But I wasn't done, not even close. The moment Jake realized I wasn't backing down, something in him shifted. He didn't explode or yell. He did something much worse. He doubled down. Within 48 hours, Jake sent out an official company-wide memo claiming there were ongoing internal investigations regarding financial misconduct. He didn't name me directly, but he didn't have to. Everyone knew who he was targeting. Meetings became colder. People whispered behind closed doors. My calendar was mysteriously wiped clean. No client calls, no project discussions, nothing. Jake was isolating me. Not enough to fire me. No, he was smarter than that. He wanted me to break. He wanted me to lose control so he could point at me and say, "See, I told you he was unstable." But what Jake didn't know was that every move he made, every memo, every email dripping with passive-aggressive language, was being quietly stored by my legal team. He thought he was burying me, but he was burying himself. Then things got worse. One evening, around 10 p.m., Marcus called me. He sounded shaken. "Alex, I shouldn't be telling you this, but Jake is planning something big. He's meeting with one of the board members tomorrow morning, behind closed doors." My pulse spiked. There was only one reason Jake would meet a board member privately. He was trying to push me out, legally. I asked Marcus, "Did he say anything specific?" Marcus hesitated. "He told them you're preparing to sabotage the company because you're angry. He's claiming he found evidence on your laptop." I closed my eyes. Anger wasn't the right word. What I felt was something colder. Jake wasn't just lying. He was trying to manufacture evidence. That crossed a line. I called my attorney immediately, forwarded all communication, and before sunrise, we had filed for an emergency digital forensic order to protect my devices and prevent Jake from tampering with anything. Jake didn't know we did it, not yet. And while my attorney handled the legal walls closing in on Jake, I focused on something else, the weakness in his armor. Money. Jake wasn't just a thief. He was a reckless thief. The forensic accountant had discovered that Jake was funneling money into a secondary project, a private startup idea he never told anyone about. It was supposed to be his escape hatch, his empire after he pushed me out. But here's the thing. The project was burning cash fast. It was being funded illegally, and the investors had no idea. Jake was juggling flaming knives, and he didn't even realize one was about to drop. Then everything changed with one phone call. Peterson, the investor who had seen all the evidence, called me urgently. "Alex, we need to meet tomorrow morning, face to face. Bring the full report, all of it." His tone was serious, not angry, not confused, determined. I didn't know whether the meeting would be the beginning of Jake's downfall or the beginning of a war that would drag all of us into the mud. But I knew one thing. Jake had finally crossed a point of no return. When I walked into that investor conference room the next morning with the thick binder of evidence in my hands, I had no idea that within the next 48 hours, Jake's entire world would start collapsing. And the first domino wouldn't fall where I expected. It would come from someone Jake trusted more than anyone, someone Jake never thought would betray him. When I walked into the investor conference room the next morning, Peterson wasn't alone. 5 major investors sat around the long table, arms crossed, waiting. Their faces didn't show panic or confusion. They showed anger. Deep, focused anger. Peterson gestured for me to sit. "Alex, we reviewed everything you sent. All the transactions, all the transfers, all the patterns." He tapped the thick binder. "This is damning." Before I could respond, the door opened again, and Jake walked in. He froze when he saw me. His eyes darted from the investors to the documents, then back to me. He wasn't expecting this. "Jake," Peterson said coldly. "Sit." Jake tried to smile, but it wavered. He sat slowly, hands folded tightly like he was trying to stop them from shaking. Peterson didn't waste time. "Jake, we have evidence of unauthorized transfers from company accounts. Money routed through shell contractors, suspicious invoices, even funds going into a private project you never disclosed." Jake's face went pale, but he quickly recovered and put on his charming voice. "This must be a misunderstanding," he said. "Alex has been creating false accusations because he's upset about—" "Jake," Peterson interrupted. "We didn't get this evidence from Alex." The room went silent. Even I looked up, confused. Jake blinked. What do you mean? Peterson leaned back and folded his arms. We got it from someone else. Someone with login access. Someone who knows your patterns better than anyone. There was a knock at the door. And then, Marcus walked in. Jake stared at him like he had just seen a ghost. Marcus, what the hell are you doing here? Marcus swallowed hard, but didn't look away. I told them everything, Jake. The accounts you made me help you set up, the contractors you forced me to pay, the private project, everything. Jake shot up from his chair. You think you can lie your way out of this? Peterson slammed his hand on the table. Sit down, Jake. Jake sank back into his seat, seething. Marcus continued. I saved every message you sent me, every instruction, every transfer approval. I kept it all because I knew one day you'd turn on me the same way you turned on Alex. Jake was shaking now. Anger, fear, maybe both. You promised me part of that new company, Marcus said softly. You said I'd run operations, but the more I worked with you, the more I realized you weren't a visionary, you were a criminal. You were like a brother to me. Marcus didn't flinch. You used me, Jake. The room fell silent. Then Peterson pushed the binder toward Jake. This is enough for a full criminal case. Fraud, embezzlement, tax violations, maybe worse. Jake's face collapsed. His confidence evaporated. His voice dropped to a whisper. Alex set this up, didn't he? I finally spoke. No, Jake, you set this up. Every lie, every theft, every rumor you spread about me, all of it led you here. You didn't just burn bridges, you burned the ground under your own feet. Jake looked around desperately, searching for even one ally. He found none. Peterson stood. Effective immediately, Jake, you are suspended pending full investigation. Your access to all accounts is revoked, and the board will convene within 24 hours to vote on your removal. Jake opened his mouth, but no sound came out. This wasn't just a setback. This wasn't just a bad day. This was the beginning of his collapse. But what Jake didn't know, what no one in that room knew, was that the consequences of his crimes were far bigger than losing his position. I had uncovered something else in the report, something even Marcus didn't know about, something Jake had been hiding from everyone, something that would not only destroy his company, but destroy his entire life. And that final blow, that last devastating piece of his downfall, would come from me. 2 weeks later, Jake's empire crumbled faster than anyone could have imagined. I wasn't just sitting back and watching. I made sure every piece fell exactly where it should. First, the board called an emergency meeting. All accounts frozen. All contractors instructed to halt payments. Investors pulled out overnight. Jake tried to negotiate. He called, begged, threatened. Nothing worked. Then the regulators arrived. Financial audits, tax audits, every illegal transaction uncovered, every hidden account frozen. Jake lost not only the company, he lost everything he had worked for. His reputation, his wealth, even the luxury lifestyle he flaunted. But I didn't stop there. I made sure the story spread. Investors, business partners, even the media, everyone knew exactly what kind of person Jake really was. And Marcus? He stayed by my side, a silent witness, making sure justice was done. Jake tried to fight back with lawyers,
But every case collapsed over the mountain of evidence. The more he struggled, the faster he fell. Finally, one evening, Jake called me, his voice broken, pleading. "Alex, please, I'll give you anything. Just don't ruin me completely." I smiled quietly. "Jake, you ruined yourself. I just helped the truth catch up." By the end of the month, Jake filed for bankruptcy. The company he built with lies and betrayal was gone. The investors scattered. The contractors walked away. Jake's name became a warning whispered in corridors of every Tier 1 business circle. I walked away with my reputation intact, lessons learned, scars remembered, and a sense of justice finally served. Sometimes the sweetest victories aren't in revenge. They're in watching someone face the consequences of their own actions without lifting a finger. Jake's empire was gone, his arrogance shattered, and I finally could breathe again.